Geek Tank is supported by listeners like you.
Get your Uru hammers and your nailer guns, a sonic screwdriver or a sword +1. Use Valerian steel, it'll get you to come to the Geek Tank, to the Geek Tank, to the Geek Tank. The Rocky Mountain Geek Tank.
Hi, I'm Guy.
Hi, I'm Troy.
Hi, I'm Chelsea.
And this is Geek Tank Live.
Your Swatch-sized podcast.
I'm very distracted.
So today on our show, we are going to talk about your little interesting.
Yours, yes, mine.
I talk Troy to point to Troy.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't quite wrapped my head around this concept, so go ahead and explain it.
Gotcha.
So technology is a wonderful thing.
It is.
It's also an awful thing.
So we were going to explore some of the things that we miss that has been basically eradicated or on its way out the door because of technology, specifically things related in a geekdom kind of sense.
Yeah.
And this came up because a friend of mine had posted a picture of an old fanzine on Facebook. And fanzines in physical form aren't really a thing anymore.
Right.
Because websites now. And it's kind of ties into the whole almost everybody knows what fan fiction is and everybody knows about fandom, so it's not as an exclusive club as it used to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is a good thing and a bad thing in a way.
Exactly.
It's
So
very
we're
interesting to explore.
going to explore what do we miss, the aspects that we miss about things that are now gone from geekdom because of technology.
So that's where we're going with this one.
Yeah.
We do have people on the forum with us, and we may be interacting with them. If you want to join us in the future, you can join us on Tuesday nights, Mountain Time at 8 o'clock, and feel free to join our discussion.
Yes. Join us at 8 o'clock for our live news feed.
And then
Whenever.
whenever we start this podcast.
Exactly.
But yes. Okay, so
Oh my god.
now thinking a little bit about how this all works, I remember my first and earliest comics. It's interesting we just brought this up because I just posted to my website all of my first comics that were posted in a fanzine. You know, like a zillion, 100 million years ago. And there, I was looking back at some of that stuff. And I mean, I was doing all of the hard stuff. Like I'd do them on 11 by 17s, and then I would print out the text so that I could paste it using glue, paste it into the text bubbles. And I mean, it was brutal.
Using the border tape?
Yeah,
To
I was using
outline
all
your
the,
borders?
yeah, get all the border in and everything like that. Oh man, it was fun. And now looking back on that was a lot of fun to do those. But you know, now of course computers have changed everything.
Oh, yeah.
I do all of my stuff on computer. But I was thinking about that while posting all of these pictures. I was like, yeah, the numbers are all screwed up. Everything's all messed up because I wasn't going to re-glue all of these on there. You know, after I'd glued on the wrong numbers, I was like, well, screw it. I'm not doing this again. So, but
That was
now
part of the newspaper in high school, and I remember a lot of layout, having to learn how layout's done, and getting.
Layout's super interesting too. It's
It
fun
is.
and finicky.
It's one of those. It takes back then. It took time, and it was like putting a model together because it took a long time and a lot of effort. But you were really proud of the product that you had at the end of it.
And there was something, and that was what I was kind of, I don't know, I still have those masters, and I look back on them and I'm like, you know, they're rough. They're really, really rough, but they're fun. You know, it was fun to do, and it was a neat skill to have. And the fact that I did original markups, that's not something you're going to find many people from, I mean, like your generation even doesn't even, I've met people who are in their 20s. They never did layouts like that. They're
No.
called layups.
They
They
don't-
never did layups.
They don't have to.
Nobody had
Everything
to do
was
those.
done on a computer. I mean, it's interesting because for me, when I learned how to write in cursive, I knew how to write faster. So I would write everything in cursive. and then I would do shorthand. Shorthand's pretty much all but lost.
Right.
I mean, we have texting, which gets to shorthand,
Which is like
but
shorthand.
it's not as
But that's a whole
elegant?
different.
it's
That's
not
a whole
as
different
elegant as
culture.
shorthand. Yeah.
That's a whole
So-
different culture.
You know, when I go to handwrite things, a lot of the times I will find that I'm less willing because I can type faster.
Yeah.
But then, you're spending all day squinting at a computer, and my eyesight's already bad.
Yeah, my eyesight's getting worse and worse
It's
with
not-
every year. I'm noticing.
It's not
But
helping. But like all that craft time that I used to spend, like hand writing out things. I used to do a lot of calligraphy with my parents.
I feel like he's going to write me a ticket.
Just
he's a
crafting
notepad.
in general.
Yeah.
I feel like I miss out on a lot of that time because I'm glued to a computer or to a phone because I'm talking to somebody or I'm doing something or I'm working on a story, something. There's always something involving a computer. And I don't think I've had a day without technology since like the 90s.
Right. Well, and that's something else to think about is, I've been listening to another podcast, which is called Hurry Slowly. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they've been talking about is cutting off the time that you're interacting with machines and with screens and with your phones and stuff like that. It's not really healthy. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to think that there's a certain amount of that too. So I've been trying to do that. I set my alarm for every day at 8:30 to just go off at my house, and it just goes off, and then I tell the house, okay, it's the alarm time, and everybody in the house tries to get off their screens, and not be on the screens
Well,
after 8:30.
It's
So
not just being on like one screen.
Except
as
for
well.
Geek Tank, you should
Because-
watch Geek Tank.
There are times where I'm on my computer working and on my phone and watching TV and music is playing somewhere as well. I've had that happen a lot. It's like over.
Yeah, see, I used to be able to
Overkill.
do that, and I can't anymore. I can't.
It kills me. I get migraines.
I'm running out of concentration time.
Yeah.
That's definitely a cultural shift because the younger generation and even younger than that, they're adapting that as their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Right.
bizarre to them for anyone to not have a cell phone. It's bizarre to us old folks to have fellow old folks not have a smartphone.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, our tech guy, who's not
Yeah.
actually here. But there's so many benefits to certain tech. Not having it seems ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But letting it control you is where I think part of the problem's coming into. It's one of the things I miss from tech is I could not be available and people wouldn't judge me for not being available. There's this weird pressure of if you try to contact someone and they don't answer within the next 2-3 hours, you wonder, well, what's wrong?
Right,
Clearly they have their phone on them. Why can't they text me 20 words to answer my question?
right.
So there's this constant feeling of always having to be available to people.
It's being wired into like the fact that you could Google anything that you can't physically remember. You could connect with somebody to ask a question or something like that.
We've got
There's
the
that
sum
feeling
of
of
human
being
knowledge right here.
wired in. You know what I mean? Because you have everything at your fingertips.
I have
right?
one phone number memorized, mine, so I can
You?
tell people. Before
I have
cell
my
phones,
work
I had
number
almost every
memorized,
number.
but I don't know my own phone number. To
I used
be
to have
honest.
I used to have any number for anyone that I called more than 10 times. I had memorized.
Yeah. Well, and
You didn't have any
that was an amazing thing. I was thinking about that the other day because I've been recording and writing down all of my memories for my life and things like that. I've been doing that since my mom passed away about 15 years ago. I can't believe it. It's been 15 years, but I've been writing in this document. Every time I remember a memory or whatever, I'll write in this document. It's now like 60,000 words. It's this
Really
huge document.
sweet.
But every time I'll think of a phone number, like my grandparents' phone number, I'll write that in there, or it's something like that.
Just little bits of info.
Yeah, little bits of info, because if nothing else, what an interesting thing for my, I'm going to pass that to my son, who hopefully will pass that to his kids, who will pass that to their kids.
Yeah.
But there's this dead world that's gone. It's gone. It's never coming back.
I mean, there are people like, I'm bringing this back because I have super vivid dreams a lot. It's kind of crazy, and
Like
I
us
remember
putting
them.
up shelves.
Yes. not putting up shelves.
Not improperly
Well, we
putting
were
up
putting
shelves.
up miniature dividers, apparently, not shelves.
Yes.
Yeah, we were putting up the dividers.
I had this dream that I had come back from something, and we had finally found this warehouse
shelves.
space to do the podcast, and it was this beautiful space, and like everything had been painted, but none of the soundproofing had been put up or the shelves, but they had all been stacked neatly in a corner. And it was like, if you're gonna stack it, why don't you just put up the dang shelves and soundproofing equipment? And I just got mad, and there was like a dragon as well, and like Mariah was there, and like there were all these like little bits and pieces. It was very, very
And
strange.
you were there,
But
and
I
you
get-
were there.
I get super, super vivid dreams, and people get creeped out when I tell them my dreams, because I'm just like, this is everything that happened, and they're like, what have you been drinking? It's like,
I'm okay with
water.
this. This is hysterical. This adds a whole bunch of color to our show. So please
So
keep sharing your dreams.
I
They're very
keep
funny.
a dream diary now. Because I used to. A long time ago, I used to keep a dream diary, and I forgot to. And I think it's funny just going back and seeing what was in.
I've
what
only
was
got
going on
one
during the
dream
time.
written down, but I remember I used to do something similar because I had a book on interpreting dreams, and so you'd have to write them down because you forget them very quickly.
Right.
And
Or
I-
you're supposed to wake up
yeah.
and write them out first thing. Like for me, the thing is I don't usually dream over the course of the night. What'll happen is I set my alarm an hour early, an hour before I have to get up. So I'll wake up, I'll fall back asleep, and that's when I'll start to dream. And that's when I have these super vivid dreams. And it's kind of a fun ride, but it's also like a really horrible thing, because when I was a teenager, you know, I'd sleep until noon so that I could have these super long, vivid dreams. And I tend to daydream a lot when I'm at my computer just listening to music and things like that. And I'll write those out too if something like inspires me or there's something that I'm clearly concerned about, you know what I mean? But it kind of just, it shows what's on your mind.
Right.
And when I'm stressed out, I tend to dream even more and even like crazier things. So it's very interesting to see like where I am and what's going on and what I'm thinking about and going back to those motifs and seeing what's happening. So I started doing that again, and I haven't done that in like years, probably at least 15 years. So
I've heard that the dreams that where you wake up during them are the ones you remember the most.
Which makes some sense.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I have recently, I would wake up and I'm like, wow, that was a really strange dream. There was and I noticed that it's fading, and I'm
Yeah.
actually like observing it fade.
yeah, you're watching it fade like
And I'm like
hey.
watching it fade away, and I'm like, this is almost more fascinating than the dream itself, was watching it just slowly fade out. But let's bring us a little bit back to the topic, because we've
Yeah.
gone far afield. I know you're all shocked and surprised. But let's talk a little bit about
So I was going to mention bulletin board systems, because
BBSs.
this was one of the first big leaps into geekdom for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
And
keeping
it's-
everything on, like,
There
do
was
you mean
a-
keeping everything on
So
a
a
bulletin board, like everything that you
BBS, also called a computer to bulletin board service, or CBBS, is a computer server running software that allows users to connect to the system using a terminal program. Once logged in, the user can perform functions such as uploading and downloading software and data, reading news and bulletins, and exchanging messages with other users through public message boards, which is the main thing I used it for, was chatting, because you find a different board. So it's one of the
Oh,
first early
gotcha.
real-time chat programs.
Right, and
on
it's
computer.
like AOL before AOL Instant Messenger,
Correct.
which turned into Facebook, which turned into Facebook.
So long before that, and
Messenger.
then that's back when a lot of people didn't have their own computer. So going onto the campus to college in order to do that kind of stuff.
Don't answer the phone.
And the BBS group I was a part of would have a monthly meeting at Mr. Gaddy's, which was a pizza place. It was all you could eat pizza, and we all had cool little names back in the day. And mine was Low Key. LOW space KEY, and it was what if the god of trickstery was very laid back and didn't really, they're sort of procrastinating on their tricks. Low key. The only other one I remember off the top of my head too was a friend who went by Cocopelli, which was also another trickster god.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we always joked that we were the trickster gods.
My grandparents love Coco Pelli. They have like a billion different pieces of
Cocopelli
him. Yeah.
pieces all over.
Yeah, those little statues of him playing his flute. They're
Yep.
fantastic.
But,
I do remember message boards a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's interesting to see. My friends and I were like divulging on what we used to be on all the time, and we used to be on like Harry Potter fan boards, because of course that came out when I was 12 years old. So I was like, "Where's my letter? It's too late." So like the Harry Potter fan boards are really big, and like role playing or crossboards as
Right.
different characters was really, really big for a really long time. It's starting to come back.
Yeah.
but in a lot more of a secure setting than I think it ever was at that point.
It was a little scary back then.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really scary stuff.
I mean, it's still scary now. You just have to be careful,
There's all kinds of scary, but and maybe that's part of why I keep thinking that, okay, so there was this technology, but we've moved on to a different world.
Well, even then, even though it was all on the internet, at least in my realm, it was still mostly local.
Yeah.
And odds are you knew you were only like 3 or 4 degrees away through your friend circle to anyone else that was on there.
Right.
Gotcha. So the world was still kind of small.
It was
Well,
very small.
I connected to the Denver Freenet, which was a dial-up service through, I want to say CU Boulder. Might have been CU Denver. But they had a Freenet set up, which was 100 like telephones.
Okay.
And you'd just dial in, and it would take you in. And then once you did, you were on the internet. It had a RapNet server downstairs. And so you'd connect in, and you could actually, if you knew the actual like IP code of where you were going, you could go places on the internet. But it was the internet back then. You would go in, you'd connect, it would make the noise, and then it would come up and say,
Netscape
"Welcome to
would come
Denver
up.
Freenet," and it would give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, chat with other people on Denver Freenet. 2, your user settings. 3, connect open to or get an open FTP connection, whatever, and then it would have a command prompt, and it would just blink, and you would say, "Open." 142.226.1.3, and it would say opening connection, and it would say host handshake, and it would like give these like instructions, and then it would start a different set of text. Welcome to Bob's anime heaven, and and then
Go
it'd
through
be
that.
like 1, press 1 to download pictures of Ranma. And press 2 to download pictures
Take
of.
a freaking hour and a half to download anything.
It was forever. It took me forever. And I think I still have
But
somewhere.
it didn't feel forever because you had no comparison.
Right, I didn't know.
Oh yeah.
And then
there were,
Mom would
like-
pick up the phone downstairs, and then
everything
would
would
drop.
die.
And then
Yep.
I'd have to redial Denver Freenet and start all over again.
You had text-based adventures games for a really long time.
Oh, yeah.
Starting out, and then it was point-and-click adventures, which were super cool as well.
She'd get really mad, too.
Oh my God, I would scream at my mom if she answered the phone. It was the worst thing on the planet. It really was, because like my
Zork.
biggest thing was
Aaron
AOL
O'Brien is
Instant
talking about
Messenger,
Zork.
You know, I do miss the days of the LAN party as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
When you used to just grab all your clunky computers in one space.
Yep.
Now we don't have to because our
Well,
internet's good enough.
Back
to
when I
connect
first
across.
met this guy, it was one of those, you carried your monitor, which was the size of a small 12-inch television.
Right, and it's huge. Like it's heavy.
Weighs like 4
Heavy
bricks.
as sin. Yeah, and you're trying to like.
Then your tower and everything.
So we had the first LAN games that we did. We would do at our friend James's workspace, and everything was 10 base T at that point in time, which were these hook and you plug the thing in and twist it sideways to lock them in. If there was one break, the
we're
entire network went
screwed.
down.
Exactly.
The entire network
Everything
went down.
has to be like
And
just
so-
like just so.
We would have tech night, and then we would have game night. And some nights we'd get there and we'd plug everybody in, and nothing would happen because one of the cards had decided to burn a chip out. And so we had
tried
like a
to fix
box
it.
full of cards because somebody was working for some school, and they dumped all their cards to go up to the next level of cards, 10 base 12 or 10 base 15. And so they dumped all their old cards, and so we had a box full of them. So one of them would burn out, and we'd open the case and we'd pop the card out and put the new one in, but we had to figure out which one it was. And you couldn't tell because all you knew was just as long as every
it's on the
computer on the network.
Yeah.
So we would have to unplug one computer and then just keep making the network smaller and smaller and smaller and see whenever it started working again. And that's how we would identify which one was off.
What's funny is, as much of a pain as a butt as it was, and now knowing how much easier it is with this tech, there was a certain charm to it.
There
And
really
there's
was.
definitely an interesting. We're still face to face, even though we're playing all these computer games.
Right.
Which
You're sitting around the same big old freaking table working together, you have your breaks. And it would like for us, LAN parties were like weekend parties, right?
It was
So
a whole
Friday
weekend.
night through Sunday afternoon, just on the computer and having a good time. And like we did World of Warcraft a lot that
Yeah,
way.
we did
World of
StarCraft.
I'm wondering
Warcraft,
for
yeah.
people who haven't had the experience of face-to-face LAN party and gaming, if they can even comprehend, because they have Skype Google Hangout style, so
Right.
they're still
Yeah.
face-to-face kind of, quote
You're
unquote.
still there. I mean,
But-
like this software that we're using for the show is
Correct.
used a lot for gaming.
So they still have gaming with real live people experiences, but I wonder if they can comprehend the differences that we old timers feel of actually being in the same room
It's a
gaming with
difference
somebody.
in energy, right? Because when
Very
you're all
different.
together, like if you get amped up about something, it's real easy to get you all amped up and going.
Throw Cheetos at Guy.
Right. Or do other things. I mean, the other day, Kevin often comes over and plays Black Desert Online with me. He'll set up his laptop right on the table next to me, and then we'll go out and adventure together. Well, somebody came over and PK'd both of us at the same time. And we were like, what? You mad, bro? Did we just, like, walk into your territory? What happened, dude? But it was so funny because, like, we were both sitting there, and then this guy just walks up, and then just one slash kills both of us. And we're like, that was not cool. And I thought we had set ourselves for no PK, but I guess once you get over level 50, you can be PK'd at any time. So there you go. We learned something new about BDO.
What
So where you
kills
just
me,
burst into
like-
flames because it's pyrokinesis?
Yes.
Okay. I'm
What
s-
kills me now is you used to before the age of YouTube, you had Newgrounds
Right.
and Albino Black Sheep, which is where I found all my Flash animation. And this was like old, like sketchy stuff
Oh, I love
that-
Flash animations.
that people made
Except that
with a
one.
lot of hard work. And some of them are still out there, and just going back and watching them, it's incredible.
Well, the original
But,
Home
like-
Star Runner and Strong
Right.
Badge were
Right.
Flash.
Oh my
right?
god,
Yeah.
it's so fun. And
Female,
watching Aaron
hoping
Hansen.
from a female.
He's amazing, and it's very interesting to see how far it's come, especially with digital animation now. It's a lot easier and it's a lot faster to produce things, and so they're able to come out with more. But just think of like all that love and dedication that it took to get it started, and like now YouTube has exploded. It's not just Flash animation; it's vlogs and blogs and conspiracy
Well, heck,
theories
we're gonna be
and
there at some point.
history and
Well, it's
It's
definitely, I
so
know what you're
much
saying, because there's
more.
definitely an interesting jump from when I had to edit my movies that I filmed on a video camera that you stuck the VHS tape into, and then you used two
you had
VHS
to, like-
players to edit, along with a little sound mixer. And very few people did this because it was such a pain in the button. It wasn't that hard to get a hold of the equipment, but the level of
It's
equipment
a
you can get a
lot
hold
of
of is a lot of time. And
So
then when you
much
show it to
time.
somebody, there's a certain amount of, wow, you made this? But now today, everybody makes movies.
Yeah, and you have to be very careful about like your quality and your consistency too, because there's so many people out there who can edit, who can film, who can sound mix, and so
We
it
can't compete.
feels like it's even harder to do. Like I don't love doing sound editing. You guys know this. I really don't I don't like doing sound editing because I used to do sound in theater, and trying to balance everything like to my
Specifications.
it took ages. It was such a pain, and then like recording and then finding that one thing was off in the audio balance, and it's do it all over again, you know what I mean, because you didn't want to edit at that point. You'd already put all this work into it. And with all the content that's out there, I feel like some people aren't sure how to be creative anymore,
Right.
because they've seen all this stuff out on YouTube specifically, right?
Well,
But
it's,
they're-
it's a negative feedback because things that aren't really creative can do really popular.
yeah,
It's what I call it in comedy,
yeah.
negative reinforcement through laughter. And it'd be like in improv, there's a yes and rule. When you're trying to create something from scratch, for me to help create what you're doing, I need to say yes to what you're saying because I don't know where you're going, and you might not even know where you're going. But the only way we're going to get wherever it is
It's just by
is to
building on
add
it.
to it. So
Yeah.
if you say, "Hey, Troy, this is a delicious hamburger," I should say, "Yes, it took me forever to cook it," or something like that. So we can add to it.
So that-
But if I
yeah.
say, "That's not a hamburger," it's going to get a laugh.
It all of a sudden becomes like a
I'm getting a
joke.
laugh at your expense by destroying where you were going with it, but that laughter that the audience gives reinforces the bad negative behavior of going for the joke and not going for the story. And so you get that with a lot of the watch me eat this bucket of chili peppers on YouTube, and now I am making hundreds and thousands of dollars in Patreons, whereas this geek show that does all this geek exploration doesn't get it because they're not eating buckets of chili peppers. So,
Right.
And we're working hard.
on eating chili
Well,
peppers.
and then you got other people who do like they fake their own deaths and freak people out. Like
Right.
the internet is such a treacherous place anyway.
Well, and it's all the same people who were there before. It's just now they can broadcast.
right.
Because
And
this is easy.
this is where I worry
Relatively.
about the future of gaming to a point. I used to watch a lot of gamers on YouTube. If I didn't want to play a super scary game, I would watch them play it. And I found out that I wasn't enjoying myself as much while playing games because I was like I was on overload, you know. Whenever I wasn't playing a game, I was watching somebody else do it, and I see a lot of kids do that now, and it's terrifying, to be honest, because it's so much game intake. Like if you're gonna play a game, you should do it yourself, in my opinion. I will look at like reviews and things like that and maybe a little bit of gameplay to judge something, but now I know enough reviewer channels that I know what I want to play based on that and spend my money, because games, you know, they're getting more and more expensive, and more game companies and publishers are getting more and more ridiculous. I mean, Fallout 76 practically came out broken and is still freaking broken. So I choose where to spend my money and where to spend my time, because my time is valuable as an adult now.
So
where it wasn't
speaking
as
of games, somebody had written earlier that they miss the fact that you couldn't just look up video game stuff.
Yeah.
That
I
video
had
game
that on
guides
my
and
list,
cheats.
too,
Yeah, it was Joan.
because
and
you
it
can
was-
you can look up like the Konami code. Like it would come in a super exclusive magazine, or like a friend of a friend heard about it from a developer friend. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, so if you got stuck, you'd have to ask around or actually figure your way out through that game. That
And
challenge.
I feel like I have like less patience with that now, because I know I can look it up. And so I've actually, usually when I'm playing a game now, I will put my phone away, so I can't look at it, so I can't automatically be like, I'm gonna look this up.
You know, the worst cheaty thing for me most recently is I've started doing more versus computer Scrabble on my phone. And I'll see a word, but I can't remember how to spell it. And instead of sitting there and plugging in all the possibilities of what the word would be, I end up
You just
looking
gotta
up how to
look it
spell
up.
it. And I feel bad about it, but that's the hardest thing to resist.
Right.
Resisting walkthroughs is actually really easy for me in games. I only end up looking at walkthroughs if I get so stuck that I feel like there's nothing else I can try.
Gotcha.
Well, and it also makes me feel like there's another feedback loop there too, because I mean, Black Desert Online, really, pretty much you have to be on some user group just to figure out how to play the game.
That's insane.
It's just so complicated.
I had to
mean,
do
there's
that
like
too for
there's an
like
entire like sub game for meeting all the people in town and just getting better at. I mean, like all the NPCs. There's like this sub game for the NPCs. You can't buy
Jeez.
furniture for your house until you're like friends with the furniture dealer,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you have to figure out how to do that.
I just
And it's like that's just way too. And it's because there's no more. You know, it's not. You can go out there and get it.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, you know, they don't make it easy anymore.
There are two games that I love to play. And I love them because they are a little puzzle that I have to continuously work on and solve.
Right.
One is called Loom. It was developed by LucasArts, and you essentially can play tunes through your Loom, and so it teaches you each song essentially, and you need to write them down. Now they're the same in every single game, but
Right.
like if you go through,
Still
it
cool.
came with a book where you could write down the tunes and keep a log while you were going. It's the same thing for Myst that I found a lot
love
of the time
Myst.
with all the different little puzzles where you could write down pieces because they might come up later.
Right.
And I love Myst for that. But that you could go out now and like find a full guide to Myst. Instead of like sitting there hashing it out and trying to figure out things and see how things work and build it together, you can literally just look it up.
Right.
And I feel like that takes away from that experience, and it takes away from like that wonderful feeling at the end of solving like a whole game of Myst, like getting through the whole game. You're just like, yes, I did this. It was me. And there were all these like cool little puzzle games that were point and click adventures that was so cool, and text-based adventures where you had to actually think and work through things. And I don't want to say they've dumbed down games a little bit. What they've done is they've made them more easily accessible to pick up and drop off
Right.
because of our time now, but I miss that experience.
So I think that coming back a little bit to what we were talking about before with fanzines, because I think that's a good stopping point for games. Fanzines. So there was a thing we used to build in when you're doing a mock-up called a scamp. And what it is you take a bunch of paper, you fold them over, you'd staple them in the spine, and then you draw the layouts of each page.
Okay.
So you'd physically know where everything, and you
You're
wouldn't
talking
draw
about,
it.
like-
And depending on whether your artist was insane and stupid, it would be either like a whole bunch of stick figures, or it'd be this really detailed, elaborate with full markers. Like the scamps themselves
Like
were like
the
pieces
big,
of
like,
art.
I love looking at like the big storyboards from Pixar.
Yeah, like
'Cause
Pixar.
they're
They'd be
still,
either like.
Yeah, they're sketched to
Some
like
people,
fully drawn out.
scamps look like that, and you're like, okay, that's way over the top. Because I always draw the scamp, and the first thing I do is I take it to my editor, and he's like, yeah, let's move this to this, and move this over here, and move that to there. So you have to promptly erase it. So if you've got these
Reposition.
people who did these like super elaborate things, they're like, you want me to erase it?
Ah!
But there's something I recently realized that I enjoyed those scamps. I enjoyed making them. I used to do those with my comics. My first comics, I would make scamps, and then later on, I used the digital versions in Manga Studio. And I'm feeling like I'm not connected as much anymore.
Okay.
I don't feel like I feel like it's a whole lot better to be able to pull out the scamp and look at it and go, oh, okay,
That's
yeah,
where I am.
I can see how these two are going to face. These two pages will face each other. So when you open the comic this way, you've got a flow of the page going this way, which I didn't feel like I get with digital. But I also love the hands-on making of it. So I went and bought a long arm stapler. I have one of those now staplers that has the extra long arm. I used to think those things were really stupid expensive, but apparently they're $30. $30 whole dollars.
But like just doing something with your hands is so nice. I think you realize that it's also perishable, because I know in the back of my head, anything I put on the internet, anything I pop on my Facebook or my Instagram or my Twitter is there forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't
it's
matter if
permanent.
I like delete it. There's a Wayback Machine so they can find them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everything is permanent, and the feeling of creating something and knowing that it's perishable to a point.
Yeah, I made 3 scamps
for
at home and I'm
some
done.
reason-
3 scamps was enough, and they're perishable. So
Right. You eat them. They're with shrimp.
I don't want to eat those scamps.
For some reason, it makes it a little more special because you know it's not going to be there
I have,
forever.
I have a friend who did chalk art, which blew me away. Of like, why would you make your art on the sidewalk? It's going to rain and it's going to be gone.
It's going to get
And it's
ruined by
beautiful.
people walking over it.
And she was like, well, no, it's all about the transitional part of it is what makes it beautiful art.
Right.
And that was really tricky for me to grasp on, because as the type of art that I do, I want to last because it's in a way immortalizing me. Like that, I'm over exaggerating what it does, but still having I made this and now other people can enjoy it. But if I make art on flash paper that's going to be exploded in flames for a magic trick, then that art's gone. And it's such a weird concept to grasp. But yeah, having something that's tangible that has a life that's going to go away
It's
is
a lot like the difference between like stage plays
Yes.
and film.
Right.
Because with a stage play, you can develop and grow with each performance, and then it's gone, and you get that huge rush, right?
Or is an
But,
interesting,
like doing film.
if I screw up, it's okay because it's just tonight. I
Right.
won't screw up next time.
Exactly, but like if you screw up on film, it's like do it over and over and over and over
Till you
and
get it
over.
right.
And then we've done 17,000 takes, and it's like I'm done for the night. No, we need to get this perfect.
Which, when
And
someone
then-
does screw up on stage, it gives it a certain amount of charm because you know, hey, I'm watching
That's
them
live.
develop as
Yeah.
an artist.
Yeah, you know exactly what's happening now. And there's a certain that's not just charm, that's an attraction.
And like as somebody with a bit of OCD, like trying to be perfect all the time and trying to make sure everything I do and everything I touch is perfect, perfect, perfect. Learning and understanding while I'm becoming an adult and realizing that nothing is ever perfect, ever. is great.
Right.
I'm watching Tyler make these leather belts and these leather scabbards and pieces, and I'm like, oh, there's a misstitch there. But that is character now. I'm like, that shows that it was made by a human and not a machine.
Right.
That's okay.
I keep thinking about, what would happen if we all went back in time and somebody were to look at our clothes and look at the stitches and look at the stitching and how detailed it was and go, your seamstress is like superly over the top, because like super OCD, every stitch is perfect.
It's perfect, yeah.
And they wouldn't understand. They wouldn't even comprehend
Or
it.
every imperfection is perfectly matched because the computer got it wrong exactly in the same space every time.
Right. So it's like, that'd be so weird.
It would be. It would be a little bit freaky
Yeah.
to a point.
So I had a couple more things, but I'm not sure where we're coming up to on our time since we're not doing
I'm
our
actually
usual
going to go to
breaks.
9:15 because we started at 9 or at 8:30. So I think that sounds perfectly reasonable. We've been doing about a 45-minute podcast each time.
All right, so one of the things that I kind of miss too is there seems to be less of, and maybe this could just be me, but less of a draw to actually physically get together for fan groups.
Right.
And
Like
again,
put us all in the
Meet up
basement
online.
of the bank and where we all were with the die meetings.
I wonder if that's like a social thing too, though, because there have been.
maybe I'm just not invited to anything anymore.
No, I feel like sometimes when you're online, you are definitely a different person, and you're able to be a little more outgoing than you typically would be.
You're shielded a little.
You're shielded, and there is a degree of separation. But then you meet people in person, and you worry. Like I get really big anxiety of like, are these people still gonna like me? Am I still the same fun, happy person that I am online? I just and are people gonna be like argumentative? Because
Right.
with geeks and nerddom in general, we tend to have pretty strong opinions.
Right.
There's a lot more
that
that-
world was really for the extroverts.
Yeah,
If you think about that.
my first exposure was a science fiction fan club that my brother took me to, but I was like maybe 7 or 8, and I didn't notice any of the inner fandom arguments and fights. They might not have been there nearly as much as they are now,
Right.
because we were kind of our own little exclusive group anyway, so we had to band together from the outside world, so you didn't want to have stupid little fights in your group because you had much bigger fights to take care of.
Right.
So that it's there was a fun, we're getting together once a month to meet, and we're going to talk about these science fiction books or watch this new science fiction film that we got on 8mm film or something like that.
Like
That would be
little
so
clubs in high
cool.
school and college.
Someone had a actual run of Star Wars: A New Hope that they would show there. It was my mind was so blown of like I'm watching a movie and it's not in a movie theater. This is
How do
so
you do that?
weird.
Is that legal? Is there a law against it? Are
Not if
going
they
to,
don't
like-
catch ya. This was back before Lucas had an entire empire of lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things, those groups, and that's part of the tiny little bit of the strange appeal that NDK has given to me by stepping in and becoming the leader of the board gaming group, because it has this kind of small feel again of these are the people who come to play board games, and
Yeah.
we're going to know each other by name and by sight, and we're going to see each other every year.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to be a smaller aspect than the whole convention because the whole convention's huge. But if you come to the gaming area, then I'll recognize you, type thing.
And the other thing is like our time, right? Because we're so wired in that we're always thinking about our time and checking our watches and like, do I have the time to go play a board game once a week with a bunch of people? Do I have time to play D&D? Can I carve out this piece of my busy schedule, or should I just radio in because it's easier? Because travel, like, we have so many things on demand that travel becomes an inconvenience.
Hey, every time you drive,
Kinda
you risk
makes
crashing.
me- yeah. I kind of have a theory going here that it's not a demon, a dancing demon. Something isn't right here.
It's going to be a demon, though.
Anyway, but what if, conventions were sort of for us extroverts. That was great for me. I didn't care because I'm an extrovert, but like my wife's an introvert. She doesn't like conventions now. She likes the little conventions, but she does not like NDK. Is just way too big for her. She likes being in her little cubby hole where she is. She's happy.
Most conventions
and
have
there is
become
no way
monsters.
she's going to get anywhere near DCC.
Yeah.
DPCC. Anyway, but so what if part of the explosion in fandom has been because now we've finally gotten the introverts, we've got a home for them. There's a place for them.
It's definitely part
They
of
can
it.
interact with us, whereas before we scared them all off. 'Cause it was
We
just-
still do that.
I mean, well, yeah, but before it was just the convention circuits, right? Now there's effectively an online convention circuit where all the introverts can be too. So now they can interface with us. We can still go to our conventions, which are really mostly, I mean, that's not all. Obviously, the introverts go to the conventions too. But, like, no introvert can stand like 20 minutes in the dealer's room at DCC. That thing's a mess.
I mean, you saw me.
I mean,
was
yeah.
like exhausted.
Yeah, you're completely wiped out
It was-
working the DCC
yeah.
every year, and Mariah's just like, nope,
I'll
done.
do it because like I usually, I would work 4 to 5 cons a year, and that would be like my fun time out to see certain people that I don't see on a daily basis, that I can't see on a daily basis. So I'll go do, DPCC, I'll do the StarCon, Starfest, I'll do NDK, and then I'm done. And then for the rest of the year, like, I don't go out of my way to see these people because I see them at con. And con is enough,
Right.
So last thing, since we're coming up on the end of time,
We're
I
coming
just
up on the
realized
end.
one of the things that I think technology has ruined, mostly in Geekdom, is it's way too easy now for people to spoil things.
Oh, yeah.
You never had to worry about this back in the days of VHSs in the way, because there was
yeah.
a much more acceptable zeitgeist of, well, we don't talk about these things because someone might not have seen it yet.
Well, and we also all
And there's
had
like,
to.
you have the whole trolling experience, of like, I'm going to spoil it for everybody.
Well, it's not only that. I mean, it's like if you weren't getting together at Friday night at 7 p.m. to watch Star Trek, you weren't watching Star Trek.
Yeah.
That was the way it went.
Well, you
Because you
couldn't
could
record it, or you
record
could
it on
record it and it might
VHS,
not
but
work.
your mom was probably going to record over that tape anyway with her
There was
Olympics
a
thing.
distinct
I'm not
fight
bitter.
over tapes.
I'm
I
looking
do-
at you,
I do
Mom, through
remember
the
the tape
Zeitgeist
fight.
for recording over my Star Trek with your
remember that.
Olympics. I'm not bitter. Okay,
Well, at least
so-
you don't have to worry about recording over your wedding with Star Trek.
That's true. That never
Let's
happened.
watch the birth of our son. Oh, this is Trouble with Tribbles.
Could be worse. I've heard some horror stories of what people recorded over things. Let's watch the birth of our son. Oh, I think that was before the birth.
Oh, this is how the birth came
This
to
is
be.
how birth came to be. And I don't think that's either one of us. So, anyway, okay. Well,
So if you wanna write to us,
you can write to us at questions at RockyMountainGeekTank.com. Now, the other thing is, if you want to join us, we're here from 8 to 9 Mountain Time. So you have to figure out your own time zone. I'm not helping you out with your time zones, guys. 8 to 9 Mountain Time on Tuesday nights. So you can join us anytime here, right here on Facebook. I notice there's a whole bunch of you guys. And if you guys join us, you've noticed we've been trying to fold in sort of the discussion
Yeah, we're working on it. We're trying to blend the two.
and try to get
Best
them
we
all in
can.
here. Be aware, though, that direct interaction is kind of a little more complicated because we are going to release all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we don't want to have anything that's not on the microphones out there because we're going to put it as a podcast later on.
but
So if
we'll
you-
take notes when you ask questions and
but
try
we
to
do
get back
that.
to them.
We'll try to fold it into the show as logically as possible. So you can also follow us on
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Patreon.
the whole 9 yards. You
Yeah.
can become a patron at patreon.com/Foxblade.
And we've actually revamped the Patreon, so definitely go check it out. Let us know what you think.
Yep. So there we go, guys. That's been our show for today. We'll see you next week at the same bat time, same bat channel. And that's a number 5, right? That's not that number 5. That's
Are
this
we gonna?
button.
Are we gonna?
No, we're going to stare at them.
We're not gonna say who we've been.
Oh, come on.
I know, breaking our mode there.
Oh
I've
my
been
goodness.
Guy,
I've been Troy.
And I've been Chelsea.
and this is Geek Tank Live.
As always, you can email us at questions@RockyMountainGeekTank.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We're Rocky Mountain Geek Tank. Feel free to join the conversation. We look forward to hearing from you.
Geek Tank is a production of Foxblade Media and is protected under the Creative Commons 3.0 license. Your hosts today were Guy S. Davis, C. Troy Floor, and Chelsea Kramer. Kevin Weibler is our engineer, and our music was composed by David Coyle. Geek Tank is funded by listeners like you. Please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Foxblade. I'm Mike Davis asking badges? We ain't got no badges. Good night.